I just flew in from fake wheelchair basketball, and boy are my arms tired. This is Fragments of Silicon.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me as always are my co-conspirators, Petty and Gollix. Right, so let us get to the weekly musings that we call the news. Petty, you're up first.
I've been doing a fair amount of cleaning because Saturday evening I get to bring Soul home. So hooray, new kitten. I had to get a harness for him cuz he's already pretty big for like 9 weeks old. So we're probably going to see about, harness training and taking him for walks. Because while we have a fairly large house, it's still one of those, like, if we don't take him for walks, he's probably going to become a very big boy because he's very food motivated. So that's going to be something that's going to need to be handled, which, even if I just, like, walk him around the yard for a little bit, that's better than nothing. Other than that, it's been relatively quiet. Yeah, haven't been much going on. Like, I've been wanting to go to the card shop and go play Digimon, but just not had the money for it because, adulting is hard. And, I guess something funny. I have found that noise is what a lot of people refer to as an iPad baby. She likes when I turn on the TV for her. So much that yesterday I got up a little late and she was meowing at me when I came upstairs, and I was thinking, oh, she needs food or water. She walked me over to the TV and meowed at me like she wanted me to turn it on. After turning it on, she curled up on the couch. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, other than that, not really a whole lot's been going on. Just been getting ready for the new kitten. So I guess Gullix?
All right.
This is the last full week of me having the house to myself. We'll see how that goes. My parents get back like next Tuesday or something. We had a special event at work today because one of our people is getting married, so we took a boat out to one of the islands in Casco Bay and had a nice late lunch, early dinner. So that was good. And as I alluded to in the intro thing, since it was something we were going to talk about, I had picked up DragX Drive or whatever you say it, for the Switch and gave it a try. Although I need to find a better chair if I'm going to try and play it again. Unfortunately, since my dad's not home, I haven't been able to have him take a look at it and see how it feels for someone who's actually in a wheelchair. I think that's about it.
All right. I guess that means it's my go.
Yep.
So this week has been. I'm not sure what to call it exactly. Distressing. There we go.
Ooh, that's not good.
No, it isn't because. Okay, so because my mom had I don't want to use like not a health scare, but a bad health thing happened to her. Like
Mm.
um initially she thought it was a sprained ankle. Um but let's just say some time later and a trip to urgent care revealed that she actually contracted a fairly nasty bout of cellulitis.
Ooh.
Yeah, the good, so the good news is that she's um taking antibiotics for that. Um
I was just
and
about
she's
to
on the
ask, are
mend.
they able to save the foot?
It was nowhere near that bad.
Hmm.
Like
But
um
it's a fair question, and to be frank, you know.
I, I suppose so, but yeah, she wasn't in danger of losing her foot. No, the problem was she was having trouble putting pressure on the foot.
Mm.
Um uh, to the point where a friend of hers had to lend a walker. Um, Thankfully, her church has stepped in to help out. Get her food and maneuverate her around her place,
Mm.
that kind of thing.
Are you gonna look into
Um,
getting her like a walker of her own at some point, just in case this happens again? Or
I don't think it's been discussed, and quite frankly, it's probably not a good idea because, um, long story short, she's a very proud individual and probably wouldn't take kindly, but maybe after this
I
she'll
mean, it's also one
rethink
of
it.
those things like only if it's an issue. Like she doesn't always need to use it.
Right, I get what you're saying, but it's a kind of up to her deal.
Yeah.
Like, that being said, I still have to drive to take her places. So tomorrow I got to go pick her up to go back down to urgent care because she's going to need more antibiotics. Apparently,
Mm.
they didn't give her a very long dosage. Um,
Huh.
I don't know if that was erring on the side of caution or whatever. But at the very least, she doesn't have to do the follow up at the ER, which is what
Yeah.
the documentation suggested. If there wasn't an improvement in a couple of days, I'm like, but yeah, that's kind of the thing that's been dominating my week behind the scenes. Um, so thankfully, things are getting better. It's just it's going to take a bit of time. Um, Also, starting the preliminary preparations for my brother coming in next month.
And this is
Um,
your brother in Australia, yes?
yes, my older brother. Haven't seen him in person in 10 years. So,
Hmm.
um, looking forward to it. Um, Also, with the kid, with the kids not around regularly, um, I can finally do the medical stuff that I've been needing to do this summer, but couldn't because of schedule. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and like next week, I finally get the blood test. I was supposed to take some months ago, but my doctor's appointment got pushed, so that got pushed. Um,
Mm.
Next month, I gotta get in with the eye doctor, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, like, though the optometrist probably going to be October, like just because of what's happening in September, um, in regards to my brother coming in. So, just you know, it's been a bit of a week. Thankfully, it's calming down. Like, in terms of gaming, moved over to Batman Arkham City. It's kind of still kind of in an open world mood, and I don't think I gave that game a fair shake back in the day, mainly because it was open world, and I just come off of Arkham Asylum and didn't really like that design
I
at
guess
the
the
time.
real test is when you get around to Arkham Knight.
I suppose I still haven't loaded that up yet. I've played a fair bit of Arkham Origins, which is basically Arkham City with another skin on it, and more glitches. So, anyway, so I think that'll about do it for the news this week. So, merrily, we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week are Tyler Meyer and Patrick Holleman of Something Classic Games LLC.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Glad that you could be here today. Right. So, how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the studio, the games, and all of that business. And we begin that journey by asking this question: what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Sure. You want to go first, Tyler?
Yeah, I'll go first. So yeah, I'm Tyler Muir. I'm the composer and producer of Quartet. And the first game that really kind of captivated me in a from a video game was probably Final Fantasy VII. First game I played where I really was blown away by the fact that there was a story in a video game, and that was like incredibly compelling to me. And that was kind of the start of when I really got interested in RPGs. And then that sort of led that entire rabbit hole we don't have to go into right now of just getting into RPG Maker, playing as many JRPGs as I can, meeting community members around making games, and kind of just haven't stopped since then.
Yeah, I go next. Yeah, but I had enjoyed video games, played them as much as any kid in the '90s. I'm an old, and but then one of my neighbor down the street, he's like, "Well, I got this new game. It's an RPG." And I was like, "What's an RPG?" It's like, roll. What am I rolling? And he invited me over, and it was Secret of Mana, and like he was like, no, like when you gain a level, you keep that level. Because like the only thing I ever played was like arcade style games where you beat a level, and then if you die, you have to just do that level again, like Ninja Turtles 3 or something. And I was like, he was explaining to me, like, when you gain a level, you stay strong forever, and then you gain the next level, you just keep gaining power. And I was like, oh, that's neat, because like I was pretty bad at action games. And then so we fired it up, and then Secret of Mana has that sort of, at least for the '90s standards, that is that epic opening crawl with the legend and like the music, and you see all these great, really cool pixel art locations. Some of the best pixel art locations that were essentially ever done, with Koichi Ishii doing the key art for that. And I was just so blown away because at the time, in like 1994. What we had in the United States was like DuckTales, and the only cool thing on TV at that time was like X-Men. X-Men was pretty cool, but it was like not new. It had been around in comic book form for a long time, and but kids' TV was like just so much more tame and safe, and there was no like ongoing storylines. This was before the days of like Dragon Ball coming to the United States in like '95. And so seeing Secret of Mana and that crazy opening crawl, it was really like it come from another planet. I was like, what is this? Like, this is so amazing. Like, my mind was blown. And ever since that time, I was like, oh, this is the coolest art form that I've ever seen. And I want to make this. I was like 9 years old. And that desire never really flamed out. And here I am 30 years later. And I'm about to release the first game that I directed. First RPG that I directed, actually.
Well, I mean, this is why we often ask these questions, because we have found that the childhood passions, manifest here in the here and now by the games that you're making, especially on like the indie scene. No shortage of retro throwback titles to talk about.
Yeah, it helps that they're cheaper to make too.
Oh, no doubt. No less difficult, because I'm gonna ask, how long have you been working on Quartet? And I'm not gonna be surprised if the answer is like 2 years.
7 and change years. So, yeah, it's just a little bit over 7 years. Actually, it took a long
Yeah,
time. Nobody worked on this for full time ever. We were always part time with other jobs. So little by little, and role playing games have just so much consumable content. Like you can make a system, and making the systems is important, but like you have to make every scene and make every battle individually. There's not like a lot of procedural anything, and so you have to make every town, every shop, every boss battle, every new liminal space map has to all be done bespoke. And so that takes just an enormous amount of time, and that's why that takes why it took so long. And just if you're at home following along, if your dream is to make RPGs, just be aware of what you're getting yourself into.
I suppose scale is important to take into consideration because, like, I think when you mentioned dabbling in RPG Maker, and let's just say, most RPG Maker projects aren't going to take 7 years to make, for various reasons. But
yeah, I mean, RPG Maker kind of gives you stuff out of the box to be able to create
yeah,
content quickly, which is nice. And, at least when I was a part of the community, which was in the early 2000s, there was a lot of asset packs, which, it wasn't really asset packs. Let's be fair. It was just rip the graphics from SNES games. But, there were sites that hosted all this stuff, so you could easily get stuff and just start making content. But sort of as Pat alluded, I think what made our game long to make was mainly just the things he had mentioned of being part-time, having families,
right.
and then there's just so much bespoke content in JRPGs, and
Yep.
it is just what it is. But yeah, it just all depends on scale, right? Like, I think the guys who made Chained Echoes took about 7-8 years too. So, Sea of Stars could get their game out in 2 years because they did this full time and they had a really nice budget and they were really experienced developers. So
Yep.
those things all will go a long way. So I think it just depends on the circumstances.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Yeah, and that ties into the whole 2 to 3 year timeline I was quoting before, because we found that's the usual range for full-time devs. Part-time, yeah, it's going to be usually a longer. There are exceptions all over the place here. Like, believe me, it's not ever that straightforward a good chunk of the time, but game development is what it is. On that note, we should probably rewind a bit and ask, how did Something Classic Games form in the first place? And how many of you are there in terms of the development team?
Yeah, so I'll answer the first question first. So Something Classic started in 2013. I had mentioned the RPG Maker community that I was a part of in the early 2000s. A lot of those relationships I ended up making in my teen years ended up becoming the foundation for the team of Something Classic. In 2013, one of my former collaborators in a lot of the RPG Maker games, Josh Garlitz, had reached out to me about making a professional game. And so that was sort of the genesis of it. And then at that point, we sort of like went on a Blues Brothers style recruiting tour. We brought in Tim Windorf, who was a great artist and art director. Tyler Deren, who is a programmer that Josh knew, and another guy named Luke Watcholtz, who was a writer and director who had produced kind of a cult classic in the RPG Maker community called The Way. That was the initial team that ended up making our first game, which was Shadows of Adam, which came out in 2017. So we kind of started Shadows of Adam in late 2013, and probably didn't really get going until 2014, 2015. And that game was a pretty quick one out the door. After Shadows of Adam had come out, um, I sense from the team and also myself that we just didn't have it in us to work as that specific five sum to make another game. So that's about when I had gotten in contact with Patrick. I had read some of his reverse game design books and have reached out. We had kind of been chatting about maybe doing something together. So about late 2017, when the dust was starting to settle on Shadows of Adam, Pat and I started working on Quartet, and then eventually we brought in Tyler Deren, one of the original owners of SE, to come help program, and Tim Windorf was our art director, and then we brought in the great Peter Rubel as our other programmer, who was funny enough was a Kickstarter backer for Shadows of Adam, and we just got to know him in the community because he would just poke around the Discord. And so the team of Quartet is those four core members, which are a little different than the five that started Something Classic. But Something Classic sort of became like sort of a like kind of like a JRPG developer hub. We ended up publishing one game. Josh Garlitz, the original collaborator of Something Classic, he went and spawned his own studio and produced a game called Pillars of Dust in 2020 that we published. And then we also, as a team, have gone on to work on other JRPGs, such as the upcoming game My Familiar and another game called Forge of the Fae, which aren't officially under Something Classic, but a lot of the developers and contractors on those titles come from the Something Classic hub. So that's kind of what we are now.
Okay. Yeah, so sounds like you've been steadily working for about, let's say, 12 years on various
Yeah,
projects.
something like that. I have the gray hairs to prove it. But yeah, it's been a long time coming. I mean, in a perfect world, I wouldn't be just coming up to my second title after 12 years, but circumstances as they are, and it is what it is. But yeah, so we've been at this about 12 years or so.
Indeed. And I suppose before we venture more forward in talking about Quartet, there is something I need to ask Patrick about, because you touched upon it briefly there, but it's probably worth talking about more in depth to the audience here. That's the reverse game design theory. What is that?
So yeah, reverse design is a series of 6 books that I wrote about classics of video game design. So just looking at established classics like Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, Super Mario World, Half-Life, Final Fantasy VII, and Diablo 2. So I wrote a book-length breakdown of all of the design features, a lot of them, like underlying math, explanations of how systems work, the historical roots of the RPG, things like that. Historical roots of even action games too, in the case of like Mario and Half-Life, and yeah, just break those down in an academic way at the level of a sort of a book length work, with tons and tons of data and diagrams, and yeah, historical analysis, and certainly the ones on the 3 JRPGs that I did were really instrumental in teaching me how to direct an RPG. Right, because I got a very high level view of like how do all the systems interact, how do they all come together to serve a single vision, how do all of these things work together to accomplish one artistic goal, right? Like you wouldn't necessarily think, well, the battle system and the story are operating have separate but coordinating design principles underlying them that then come together to make one vision. But that's very much the case. Like in Final Fantasy VI, one of their artistic goals was to tell a large ensemble drama in which many different characters had starring roles at different points. And to make that possible through the battle system, they had to then take many of the features of classical RPGs, like a big focus on party composition and job classes, and they had to strip those things away so that you could bring whichever party you want into any dungeon and succeed with it. And so there, a lot of the math underlying the battle system reflects that. It's like a Strago who wears light armor has his best armor is very nearly as good as Celeste, who wears heavy armor. And magic is the great equalizer. Everybody from the beefy monk to the 10-year-old painter can all use magic very well. Not that much, some of them use magic a little bit better than others, but they all use it very well, and that's reflected in the math of the game. And because of that, you can bring any group of this ensemble with you to go see the story of the game. So you would, sitting outside, if you don't do the analysis, if you just, sitting at your console playing the game, you wouldn't necessarily recognize all of that. But when you dive into the math and the graphs and the way the story is told and all the decisions they made in the design, you get to see all those things. And that was really my sort of graduate school education in game design.
I mean, I've never delved into the math of Final Fantasy VI, but I knew that the the systems in place, like every character there has a unique move set. Like Sabin has the blitzes, Edgar has the techs. Yeah.
I think you cut out a little bit there, Adam.
No.
Yeah, you get equipment, espers. Yeah, and the other thing is like there's like the difference between it, the median and best magic user is really about like 10 or 20% effect. So Realm is the highest.
Close.
Very close, and then like some of even the other light armor, like the Snow Buffler, is actually better than the Genji armor. So yeah, it's they really decrease the spread between the meaningful distinctions between character classes, because the goal was to get anybody you wanted into a party to experience a story. Because you can't have this big ensemble drama if you have to bring two knights, a mage, a rogue, and a healer, right? Because that's the classic party composition. You can't do that and also tell an ensemble drama that those two things are incompatible. So division really comes through in every part of the game. You can really see that.
Yeah, and it's a juggling act that Final Fantasy has been dealing with in various forms, not just in 6, but anything with the job system, and it goes on into the PlayStation Final Fantasies with the systems. The Magic system goes into the Materia system, that goes into the Junction system, and so on and so forth. And it's why
for a while they were really experimenting on ways to get your dudes to learn skills.
Yeah. And it's why certain people don't like those and prefer, say, like Final Fantasy IV, which does take that more rigid approach to character classes. But that might be a bit off track to the main game here. And indeed, that does lead me to the question of, so how does reverse game design flow into Quartet here? Like, how did you take those principles and apply it to your game?
So the most important thing, I guess, was about the relationships that those books formed. And when I was writing them, I knew that if I wrote them, people would find me, and we would be, I would need creative partners, and I would need people to see that, here is a guy who's capable of doing things. Because I was never the kind of guy who had the skills to be able to be a solo dev, nor would I want to do that. That would be a big strain for me. I would not get the enjoyment out of that. And so when Tyler reached out to me, as a few other people did, we started the relationship. We started talking about RPGs, what we liked, what we didn't like, what principles would work, and we talked about that stuff for years. And I was checking back in on how Shadows of Adam was going, and I made several ludicrous and pretentious and needless suggestions for how the game might be improved. I think they did a very good job, and the game was exactly what it needed to be in the end. But after the game was finished, Tyler got the bug to make another game, and I was raring to go. I had just finished the book series, so I was ready to go and very eager to finally apply what I knew to building that. And yeah, and then from there he had this, he had a very loose concept for a game he wanted to do based on an old RPG Maker game, and he's asking me, what do you think we could do to really, make this into a full commercial, release for adults and not an RPG Maker game that was, banded about by kids, but which was fine for the time. And yeah, from there we started just this gigantic email chain, which ended up having like 700 replies to it, in which we talked about what kind of design principles we would want to include in the game, and what kind of story we want to tell, and how it all come together, and what the overall vision was. And by the end of that conversation, which lasted for months, we had a really good idea of what we wanted to do, and I sat down and wrote most of the GDD for Quartet. And he definitely pitched in in every part of the ideas, but also sometimes in the GDD. And then when that GDD was done, we hired very briefly a programmer to make us a demo, and that demo got Deren interested in making another game, and he started doing sort of the beginnings of the programming of the engine, and then, which was Unity, but he began to doing the systems for us, and then eventually when we had a slightly more robust demo, Peter Ruibal became the lead programmer on the project. Because he wanted to make an RPG too, and after seeing what we had, he decided to sign up.
Okay. And how did you all collaborate?
Well, we've been entirely remote, actually. I did meet Tyler relatively early into the production of Quartet. He and I lived not that far apart at the time, and it was in the pre-COVID days when people like went out and met each other, and that was normal. And felt totally like not something you feel weird about at all. Seems those heady days are gone now. Yeah, we met at like a couple of game events and tried pitching it to other people who were up on Shadows of Adam with not that much success. And but from there, we mostly just worked remote. We've only seen each other and other members of the team, every couple of years. It probably also is affected by the fact that we all then had kids. So between the beginning of Quartet and now, no fewer than 5 children have been born.
Yeah, tiny little people that you got to take care of tend to put a cramp on free travel and that
Plenty.
kind of
Yeah. So then
scheduling and
we've been very, very remote, but at the same time we're in constant communication over Discord and things like that. And so we've been, we just wake up in the morning and look at, because we're in different time zones, all of us now, and we look at like who pushed to get that night and what did they push, and does it break the build or not, and we wake up and fix whatever needs to be fixed. And that's largely the process of the game, because again, we did have that really clear vision, right, which is that GDD that we put forward, which is actually still a 99% accurate description of the game.
So is there a betting pool on which Tyler breaks it this time?
Yeah, I mean, the person who, it's probably me and Pete who break it the most. I break it a lot. My break, when I break something, it compiles, but it, it's just has tons of problems. And when Pete breaks something, it
those
doesn't
are the
compile.
famous last words I think I've most ever heard. It still compiles.
Right. Yeah. It's like that pirate. There's a meme where it's like Pirates of the Caribbean, and the governor of Jamaica's telling Captain Jack Sparrow, by far yours is the worst code that I have ever run. And Jack Sparrow responds, but it does run. Yeah. That's no, but Pete is actually an incredibly good programmer, a brilliant programmer. It's just game development is a fraught process because it's not like corporate enterprise software. It's much less predictable and much more bespoke. So you just have to accept that that's process
held together by bubblegum
and
and dreams, and mostly dreams.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go back, and all of us go back to earlier things we did years ago in Quartet Repo and go, why did I do it? And that's a universal experience too. So that has been the process.
Well, thankfully you didn't get caught in the development death spiral, where you try to continually improve the game by going back and redoing the parts that don't meet to your expectations or standards or the moving flow of technology or whatever.
Mhm.
Yes, we've seen, like, because I work as a full-time game developer, and so I have seen altogether too many projects do that, and it's really a shame.
Or creep
So
death. Creep death is a hell of
yeah,
a thing.
we
Scope creep.
Yeah.
we are very pleased to have not encountered that.
Indeed. That won't be that is a far too frequent thing that we see on this program in various forms. Whether it be classical scope creep, or let's just say we have a solo dev who's doing this big 3D RPG game, or somewhere in between that. And that's a big reason why their project's taking so long. Oof.
Yeah.
But
If we had a
Yeah,
nickel
we've
every
seen that a
time
lot too.
scope creep happened, we'd probably own a lot of gaming outlets.
yeah, it can be a very persistent but underrated problem. Like,
Mhm.
but putting that all aside and flipping channels a bit, you know, talking about the game itself here. Um, you know, as in, what is the story of Quartet? Who is the quartet in this game? What are they doing? What is their goals, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, sure. So this quartet refers to the opening of the game is actually four split stories. So you can think of the game as being like Final Fantasy VI, very much like Final Fantasy VI. We're not shy about to saying who our influences are. It's like Final Fantasy VI, but for grown-ups, and because that's the game we wanted to play, so that's the game we made. But you think of it as Final Fantasy VI, but starting from the split scenario. Um, and so the first four chapters are four different stories in which you have four pairs of characters. You have the Alexandra, the shop girl, and Juna, the Eurofant, who's like a sentient hippo character, essentially. You have that she has a story in a modern city about a magic deck of cards. And you have Cordelia, the scholar, and her companion Jerome, the doctor, and she is essentially leaves the big city and goes to what's the Wild West in her country, and dispenses justice on the ragged frontier. And you have Nikolai, the soldier. He's a soldier and a sergeant in the army, and he is sent on a mission into a bombed out city to try and find mages on behalf of his government. And what he discovers is that things are not what they seem, and his orders might not be ethical. So he's a little bit of a change of heart, and he meets the memory golem Zakaron, the magical, mysterious character, because you gotta have one of those. And then you have, last but not certainly not least, you have Ben's story. Ben is a cook who's rapidly approaching middle age, who manifests magical powers suddenly one day during an incident, and then it can no longer be employed as a cook. And so, in order to pay his rent, he starts selling his freshly acquired magic to anyone who will pay him. And he goes on a series of misadventures while being pursued by Agatha, who is essentially one of the magic police that that govern the city that he lives in. Essentially, her job is to just make sure all of the people who can use magic in that city uh, don't break the law with it. And they go on a series of increasingly dire misadventures, eventually revealing many of the things that underpin their society. Those four stories then come together into one bigger story about a war over the control of magic. Instead of being like Octopath, in which the stories all stay separate, it is very much one story that has just four non-linear chapters that begin it.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that because Octopath was presented as doing kind of a similar thing and
Yeah,
did, but there's there are some
yeah,
issues with the actual integration of the stories because a lot of the time you're just doing taking turns doing the next part of X character's story, and also the other characters are there in battle and for out of battle manipulation commands.
Or rather, Octopath Traveler is really 8 separate stories with the occasional banter of party talk.
Yeah, like the characters don't like participate in each other's stories much.
Yep.
Aside from party chat.
I'm like, it's a thing that got me to stop playing Octopath Traveler 1. Like, because everything's just so disconnected from everything else. But
that was also my experience. I had fun with it for, I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
15, 20 hours. But then I just was like, the plot is not, except for Primrose. Primrose and the story was, well, I was pretty compelled. But then, like, I had to go in, I had to do like 18 hours of other people's stories in between her chapters. And I was like, I don't want to do another 18-hour round before I get back to the story. So I'm just going to call it a quits here.
Right.
Even though I did have fun. Love the music,
Primrose
especially. Oh my gosh, it's a great soundtrack.
Yeah, Primrose is the one I chose as the main, or at least as closest to main as whatever you do to select like the character. I'm not sure what they were going for there, but that's the one I started out with. But yeah, like eventually the story does congregate, but even then, from what I read, like not fully. Like they're like I think Primrose's story is mostly self-contained. For example,
Yeah, it's very self-contained. I liked it, but I did want something more from the overall story.
right. So switching things to the more technical side once again. We've talked a bit about the 16-bit RPGs and the battle systems. How's yours function?
Tyler, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so ours is a pretty straightforward turn-based system. It borrows the I think it's called conditional turn-based way of calculating turns. Essentially, they're in Final Fantasy 1, Dragon Warrior, you would have, rounds, right? Everyone enters their commands and then they're executed in the order and whoever has the speed priority of the round. But in our game, speed is calculated, and whenever someone gets a turn, they just get that turn right away. You have like a little bar on the right side of the screen that tells you who's going when. So it's essentially what FF10 does. Another thing we kind of milked from FF10 was the active party size is 4, and as Pat was describing the story structure earlier, you get up to 8 characters by the time the plots all sort of start colliding. And so when you have an active, when someone's turn is active in the front row of the party, you can switch out to anyone in the back row, and that person can get their turn instantly without a turn penalty. So that's kind of the two big pillars. Past that, you have your typical, buffs, debuffs, different flavors of skills that characters can do, which really depends on like sort of who they are in the story. So kind of a little bit like reflecting maybe like an FF4 style. It's not like an FF6 game in the sense of where everyone can eventually cast every spell through like some kind of learned skill tree, like an Esper system or Materia. Everyone kind of has a role to play. There is some crossover, but so I think that makes the combat a little more dynamic in the sense of, because you have the option to always be switching in people from the back row, you can sort of bring in the right tool for the job at any point. So, okay, if you're sitting in a spot where, the team is heavily debuffed and poisoned or whatever, you can switch in Juna and use her ultimate AoE cleanse move. So, or bring in Jerome to do a heal, or bring in, I need to do ice damage. Okay, let's bring in Cordia real fast to do that. And just sort of like FF6 was definitely a huge influence for like the way the narrative paces, in a way, we sort of think about the combat flow and how dungeons are about attrition rather than the individual battle. But I would say one thing we sort of tried to innovate on in regards to like a game like FF6 was that two things. And this kind of comes from our first game. The first thing was that we have a mana system in which you're always regenerating mana. So the sort of impact that had was just it allowed you to be a little less conservative with your skill use, which is what something we wanted to do. It's like it's usually the most fun when you're able to just kind of always be able to use spells. Of course, there are cooldowns. You know, if you use too much too fast, you'll have to take some time to get it back. But there's that element, and then the second element is in a lot of older RPGs, you get a large skill, you know, a large spell book, so to speak. But by the end game, most of those spells are sort of rendered obsolete because you get a new version of that spell, which is only quantitatively different. So the easiest example to sort of conceptualize is like Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3. They all are qualitatively the same, right? They all do single target fire elemental damage. Except the only thing that really changes between them is that the higher level spells have more damage and cost a little bit more. So one
Yeah,
design decision we really
some
made.
games save it a little bit by making like some versions, some of the higher versions, like in the Super Nintendo ones, I think you can select single or multi-target for all of them. Some games
Sure.
save it by having like the more powerful ones be area of effect or something, but it is a noticeable thing that they do that instead of, for example, having you level up your spells through use or something like, say, in Secretive Mana or something.
Right. Yeah, and I think like the really important point I'm trying to hammer on is just that the spells don't qualitatively change. Like Fire 1,
Yeah,
Fire
it's
2,
just
Fire
fire,
3, whether
bigger fire.
yeah, right, right. Whereas you kind of hinted at there are some games in this NES generation, like Earthbound actually comes to mind, where every elemental spell like has qualitatively different effects. I can't remember exactly, but I think like fire is like an AOE because it's like a row of flames, and like ice is like a single target, but it has like a debuff. So there are examples in that era. So that was one way we wanted to innovate, and that's not necessarily super novel, but it's definitely something I always thought about older RPGs that could be tweaked just a little bit. And a big philosophy of the game was like, don't gotta change a lot to change a lot. So you just take little tweaks to the formula, and it makes it feel fresh and different. And so hopefully people find that compelling when they play the combat in Quartet.
Mm, right. So since we got the composer of the game here, it is worth asking what went into the crafting of the music of Quartet.
Yeah, so basically with the music of Quartet, it's one thing that's been really nice is like as opposed to when I work contract for other clients where I'm just writing the tracks they tell me to write and they have to pay money to get the tracks. Because I'm a stakeholder of Quartet, I have a little more freedom to pick and choose what tracks I want to do and what areas could have new music. So with that being said, over 7 years I ended up writing 94 tracks of music. Um, which was probably too much, but there were like lots of times like little scenes where I felt like a bespoke track could really help. Is As far as my process, I mean it just depends on the track. I'm a classically trained composer, so I use that for sure. I'm like heavily influenced by a lot of the golden age composers, Uematsu, Mitsuda, and also jazz, which is my other musical training, which is as a jazz composer.
So in terms of the soundtrack, how much of that music actually made it into the final game?
All of it.
Oh wow.
I'm trying to think. There might be. I'm trying to think. There was at one point one track that wasn't in the game, and I think Pat just put it in a scene. I like wrote this character theme really early in development, and just never really had a great place to use it. And
Huh.
so I was just okay with like letting it die on the cutting room floor, and then Pat like put it in a scene or two. But yeah, every track I wrote, I think got in. I think there was actually one track I was working on for like an optional dungeon that we ended up not doing that I like half finished. But other than that, yeah, every track I wrote got in the game, so it became quite a large soundtrack.
That's actually impressive. Um, and I suppose since we're getting low on time here, gonna have to just ask a couple more questions. And the one that's most pertinent to my mind right now is how is it feeling that you're finally getting this project out the door?
Good.
It's a yeah, good. It's a buffet of emotions. Depends on the
Yes.
day. Like, I'll give you a great
Mm.
example. Like, I keep joking to the development team that I've been like trying to get into a Zen state. But for a while, like we had like the build was really rock solid. I was feeling good because the testing feedback was great. I was like, okay, we're gonna tweak at these little polished things, but like we got it locked down, baby. Like we're coming out. I'm feeling good. And then just this last night, I get a DM from one of our reviewers. He's like, hey, I ran into this really weird bug. And I saw it at 2 in the morning, and I gotta go to bed. And then I woke up and saw it, and it was like this like 1 in 10,000 soft lock, which like kind of soured my day. But then we fixed it, and it's fine. So with that being said, it just kind of goes up and down. I'm feeling real excited and anxious about it. I'm really proud of the game we made. We've worked really hard. I'm really proud of the team. I've been really lucky to work with a really talented and great team. So I'm feeling mostly like really positive, and I'm just trying to relax these last few days. And yeah, I don't know how Pat feels, but that's how basically.
Yeah, I mean, you always worry, right? You're sending your baby out into the world, but we've all played the game a lot now, and it's really the game that we wanted to make. It's the vision we wanted to put forth, and aside from making the highest quality version of the game we wanted to make, there's nothing else we can do, and we're just gonna have to put it out there and let people see it. Or of course, we're nervous. Who knows what the world will think? You can't control that.
Yeah.
Indeed. And how much is this going to cost when Quartet comes out?
$20.
$20, yeah, 20 USD.
Okay. All right. And I suppose my final question here is this game is currently slated for release on Steam and Steam alone. Are there any plans to bring this to like the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, etc., etc., etc.?
Yeah. So it's just a small correction. It's gonna come to Steam, GOG, and Epic Store. So there's at least three
Oh.
PC platforms and Mac, PC, Linux, so people can play it on whatever their platform
Fair
is.
enough.
But yes, we have committed to doing a Switch and PlayStation port. Looking at maybe Q4 this year. We just want to get the PC version out, and then we'll start working on those ports.
Okay. That is a fairly typical indie focus. Like, you'll do one platform, or in this case, the suite of PC / storefront platforms. Technically, like GOG and Epic and Steam are all different platforms or ecosystems, however we're classifying that these days. And then you move on to the Xbox, PlayStation, mobile, because of resources. Right. Anyway, so I suppose at this point I will turn over to my colleagues here to see if they have any final questions for you.
I think I jumped in when I had something.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I've just been playing the game in the background on stream, so
Yeah. How is it so far?
I've been thinking it's all right. I haven't noticed anything broken, so that's good.
Yeah. That's happened a few times.
Yeah,
like discovering a
there
bug
have been
live on-
several times our VOD has been used as a bug report.
Anyway, so yeah, I want to thank you both for taking time out of your schedules and being with us here today to talk about Quartet. It's been a very lovely conversation.
Thank you so much. We really
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
No problem, no problem. Anyway, the game is Quartet. It is releasing on August 26th for Steam, GOG, and Epic, and PC, Mac, and Linux, and will retail for 20 USD. So be sure to go on your platform of choice and wish list it today in advance. So,
Please do. Thank you.
Petty,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah. Petty, play us to the next segment when you can. All right, so welcome to the topic of discussion. So this week we decided to talk about something that we rarely do, and that is a current game that's just gotten released. and I think there's a fair amount to talk about in Drag Drive. So if you haven't been following along with this game, you might remember it or half remember it or quarter remember it, let's be honest here, as that weird wheelchair game that appeared in the Nintendo Direct for the Nintendo Switch 2 some months back. And so here we are now today with the game out at time of recording about a week now. And the actual conversation around the game is probably not unexpected, given what it aimed to be. So, once again, if you don't remember what this is, it is a wheelchair basketball game starring robots and featuring motion controls, i.e., this is Nintendo.
It's a wheelchair basketball game to use the mouse mode of the Joy-Con 2s as controlling, so that you actually control it as similarly as possible to actually driving a wheelchair.
This is another game in the long line of Nintendo tech demos. You know, Wii Sports, Nintendo Land, etc., etc., etc. You know, games that are there first and foremost to show off the quirky new design scheme that Nintendo has crafted around a new gimmick. Doesn't even have to be motion controls. See also like Nintendo Labo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nintendo Labo was there mostly to show off the IR functionality in the right Joy-Con, I feel like. That, and I mean, also the motion sensing, but it used the IR thing more than I think any other game. And notably, that's one of the things that isn't in the Joy-Con 2s, because they went with the motion stuff anyway, and probably because so few things used it. I still play Ring Fit occasionally, and that actually does use it for taking your pulse of all
Mm-hmm. Well, and
weird
I guess
things
it's
to
important to
use IR for.
note you can still use Switch 1 Joy-Cons with the Switch 2 if for games that
Yes,
are still
I've been
usable.
playing Ring Fit on my Switch 2 using Switch 1 Joy-Cons.
You just need a different way to charge it, be it a charge grip for the Joy-Cons or a third-party charger, but you can still use them.
Yeah. So, that being said, Drag Drive is a bit of an unusual game. Because this is a downloadable title. You know, this is an eShop game. Nintendo usually doesn't go this small for its design gimmicks. Like, they'll usually have a full retail software title either packaged in, you know, once again, Nintendo Labo had the Nintendo Labo stuff with it, or at least some of it. I forget the specifics of how that all worked out, but you know, Nintendo Land was a pack-in title, Wii Sports was a pack-in title, 1-2 Switch was a full-on retail title that was pretty heavily promoted. Really, the biggest title outside of Breath of the Wild. They're at the launch window, but here it's a $20 downloadable game. And as some other people have noted, you know, it's kind of lacking in the Nintendo charm that usually permeates these things.
You actually get a bit more personality than I expected when you're playing it, because the hand tracking and expressiveness is actually kind of decent. But yes, visually, it's very kind of...
It looks more like an honest
NFL
indie game than it does a Nintendo game, if that makes sense.
Right, like
maybe.
You know, when we were putting the topic together, I said, if this game has an art style, it's utilitarianism, not minimalism,
Mhm.
because minimalism tends to emphasize colors more.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't a lot of them. This looks very straight to the point
Mhm.
and isn't really
Mhm.
making an artistic statement one way or the other. It is pure function.
Yeah.
Like, just not used to that in a Nintendo title. Like, even the Wii line, that was an expression of minimalism. That boiled down everything to its, basic components, but you could tell that was still a Nintendo game.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And not just that it specifically used the Mii's. Like, there was still the Nintendo bright colors and various like design aspects. It didn't necessarily have to have like Nintendo characters in it, but there was still the Nintendo artistic flair to it.
Yeah. So, like I said, this is just all a very unusual release along those parameters. Maybe they were predicting what the conversation was going to be because, spoiler alert, it's the same conversation we've been having around these kind of games since Wii Sports. Are the motion controls good? Is it a gimmick? How deep is this game? Exact same conversation. And the reactions have been playing out pretty similarly, probably a bit starker because this isn't the mass market motion control title that a lot of Nintendo's previous efforts were. Like, once again, I don't think Drag Drive here is going to clock in 86 million sales.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever amount Wii Sports sold.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been divisive, but I haven't really seen anybody fall in love with the game.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen grudging respect, like exuberant surprise, i.e., this game wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of deal. But once again, it's still got all the motion control problems you're going to have, i.e., you play the game for an hour, your hands get tired.
In this case, it's probably your arms more than your hands.
Yeah, because it looks like it's
Yeah,
using the mouse mode of the Joy-Con, not just motion controls. It like seamlessly switches between them.
Yeah, well, it uses the mouse controls and motion controls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there have been definitely a lot of complaints of sore limbs after playing this game for a while.
I'm
Which,
gonna be honest, those are
if you
people.
want it to be a workout.
Well, and also those people probably never, operated a wheelchair. Because spoiler
Which is why I
warning.
was really wishing I could get my dad's reaction to like playing it for a little bit, because I mean, yes, as wheelchair people, your arms are going to get tired.
Yeah. And eventually, as you get good at it, you will build up enough strength, you will not get tired.
Or not get as tired as
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah. It is also worth pointing out that this is a version of wheelchair basketball. Like, officially speaking, like, these things aren't wheelchairs, they're devices. Like, it's been suspected Nintendo's been worried about, like, an anti-disability backlash that doesn't exist.
Yeah, there, just from, like, the trailers and stuff, there's enough, like, quote-unquote, respect here that it's not going to really piss people off.
I'd almost have them. I'd almost sooner guess that they would be like afraid that using a wheelchair isn't cool enough or something.
Yeah.
This is
For people
this
who
is
want to do it.
this is just a speculation around Nintendo's odd choice of framing. Like, unless the term wheelchair got secretly copyrighted or something, I don't know.
I imagine many people would be extremely upset about that.
Yeah, like upset enough to sue.
Like, yeah, it's like I don't think that's the case here. I think
And I don't
Nintendo's
know
just
if it's
trying
a
to avoid.
Japanese like mindset thing.
Mm.
Possible.
I'm extremely not Japanese enough to answer that.
Yeah, but that's the only
Yeah,
reason
like-
I can think of that be even plausible here.
Yeah, it's a question that's well outside our range
Yeah,
of knowledge, because the only ones who can answer that are Nintendo, and they're not answering that question.
do we know if this was Nintendo Japan or Nintendo America who developed this?
It's actually a Nintendo EPD game.
Mm.
Like, which is another surprising factoid here. Like, you would have expected this thing to come from Intelligent Systems, HAL Laboratories,
Yeah,
in Zero, insert Nintendo affiliate here. Or maybe, like, if it were first party, it would have been Nintendo Software Technology Corporation.
yeah.
Nope. This is from the main branch by veteran Nintendo developers. Not a lot of them, because the dev team is only 20 people. But once again,
this is a small project.
yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, look at the game. This wasn't going to take 100 people 3 years to develop.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, it's the thing we call scope.
There was probably a good amount of the time was in the like actual control systems getting it right.
Yeah. So, as far as how much content is here, that's another sticking point, because as is Nintendo fashion, there was a specific focus here. The focus was on online multiplayer.
Yeah, this looks like
because
it's a very
This is specifically
multi-game,
a online with friends or strangers online multiplayer PvP thing.
Yeah.
A social game more than a you're going to be playing this by yourself, like you can say like a Pokemon. Like, yes, Pokemon wants to be social now, but like early Pokemon you can play by yourself.
Well, yeah, Pokemon's always been social. Like that was the whole catch 'em all aspect. But
yeah, that's why there's trading.
Mm.
Yeah. So,
or like
but yeah,
Legend of
this
Zelda
game is,
then.
yeah, that works better.
Fair.
Because, well, the Legend of Zelda, outside of like Four Swords Adventures, has always been single player. So anyway, game seems to be doing decently, like on the Nintendo download charts.
Then again,
Now,
we also don't know how much they would be cooking the charts for that because it is first party.
it's not so much cooking the charts; it's we don't know the numerical values here. Like, Nintendo isn't going to be flat out lying and saying Drag Drive is the number one downloaded game or whatever, as opposed to the 14th. That's absurd. That's the absurdity that only the current administration would be engaging in.
Well, I mean, like without even just showing like numbers, they could easily place it on a high spot weight wise, but it's not actually selling a lot.
I don't think that they're able to do that, nor do they have the interest in doing that.
Yeah, it really depends on how they want to weight it. That's totally back end stuff that we're never going to find out, even if we got someone from Nintendo on.
Yeah. Also, to boomerang back on the whole digital download conversation, just because it doesn't have a retail release now does not necessarily preclude it getting one in the future. Because Nintendo's done this a fair few amount of times.
Oh yeah.
You know, they'll release like either the initial version or some sort of modified, like NES Remix had NES Remix 1 and 2 come out, or Snipper Clips had Snipper Clips Plus. We could very much get
Tetris
Drag
99
Drive.
has a physical release.
Yeah, we could very much get Drag Drive or Drag Drive Plus with like a dedicated single player mode or additional multiplayer modes in like November or February of next year. And would you look at that? There's a retail box right beside it.
Or
And
they
giving
could
that
just
this-
make it add it to like a Switch pack-in thing.
Well, also worth noting that since this is a Nintendo published title, if they do go the retail route, it's going to be a game card.
Yeah.
Like Nintendo games don't have to worry about additional costs that makes the key cards more palatable. Though they may go that route just to sheer cheapness.
Or they may just print a fucking card. If they pack it in, print a fucking card and put it in the Switch box. With it,
also possible. I'm reminded of Mario versus Donkey Kong Tipping Stars. Japan got a full-on retail release. Europe got a box. We got nothing. Like that was kind of a commentary on the state of digital distribution in the 3 major game territories.
Yeah.
Though also
at least at the time.
That game had issues.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, that being said, there is single player focus content in the form of, well, they're calling them medals. Nintendo often calls these things medals when they mean achievements.
Yeah.
Like,
for some reason, I think
really
they
weird.
feel achievements have been copyrighted, but spoilers, they are not.
Well, no. Like achievements have very much not been copyrighted. Like everyone else has a version of this. Nintendo continues to steadfastly not have a system-wide achievement system. I don't know why. I know why back in the day, but it's like, look, the rest of the industry adopted this, but I guess Nintendo feels like there's not too much of a fuss about it either way. Like, but they do have medals for various achievements. Galax can probably shine a light on what those are.
I have not really looked into it that much, but yeah. Well, there is a lot of sort of, while you're pretty much always in a lobby, there's a lot of stuff you can do in the lobby without wanting to be in a game. You can like set yourself to not take place in any of the games or any of the group mini games. And then you can just practice your shots or practice your half pipe tricks or go around the zone, try to figure out they have a whole bunch of interesting obstacle thingies around the outside of the what do they call it? Stadium
Park?
area.
I think they're calling it a park in the trailer.
Yeah, yeah. And then like I said, there are the group mini games, which there seem to be mostly races between 2 set points and a cannon in the ceiling that shoots out a ball, and whoever gets the ball first wins. And you can also just spectate, or like I said, practice your shots and stuff, because it's not like the motion. It's a fairly simple throwing motion to shoot the ball, and I think a lot of the, like, you have to be in about the right direction, but a lot of the accuracy is like semi-randomly determined based on your distance. Like if you're closer, you're more likely to hit. if you're shooting from the beyond the 3-point line, you're less likely. There is some precision though, and yeah, there's a bunch of stuff like the controls. I didn't quite get a hang of it in like the fairly short amount of time I played, but like you can do a one wheel thing or do a jump, and I could not figure out how to get the dunk to work.
Mm.
I tried to do half pipe stuff and get onto the thing, but I ended up throwing the ball, which is not what you want to do. I ended up friggin' the reason I ended up stopping playing was because I was frustrated after getting on a team with two guys who, whenever it was our ball, would go up and try to do a dunk and not do it. I kind of gave up after the first couple times it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
There is also a pass which is somewhat automated. It just goes towards whoever's the closest to in front of you.
To me, this feels kind of like early Rocket League, where you just get people who want to do certain things, but just weren't good enough at the game yet to do what they wanted, and ended up holding back the rest of the team.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
something
there's a
like that
14-second shot clock
Yeah.
is the thing. So if your team has the ball for 14 seconds without scoring or at least getting really close to, the ball just jumps out of your hands and only the other team can pick it up.
Mm.
And yeah, it's 3x3 full court, probably because half court would be too cramped because the chairs can go pretty fast.
Yeah, they look pretty nimble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, turning precisely is a little bit hard, but again, it's probably something that takes practice.
Yes.
Mm. Anyway, as illuminating as this conversation has been, we do need to wrap things up here since we are getting close to MSP time. So yeah, that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Coming up on the week ahead, on Friday, August 22nd, we welcoming Marlena Korotkova of Odovan Games. Odovan Games, they are the developers of the upcoming titles. If I can get to the right page, here we go. Potion Making, Path of the Alchemist, and Frontier Path of Shadows. A lot of paths going on here. So look forward to that on Friday. And coming up on the Sunday reviews, we'll be having reviews of Land of Mushrooms, Trident's Tale, Tiny Aquarium Social Fish Keeping, and Brock the Brawl Bar. So until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.